This video is brought to you by the Disc Golf Nerd Patreon support team. Go to patreon.com/discgolfnerd. What's up, guys? So recently I showed you all of my gobies and my backup mid-ranges. I thought it'd be fun to go over my favorite distance driver of all time, and that is the Discraft Thrasher. As you can see, I have quite a few of them. I've tested them in a number of different plastics. I carry probably at least 4 at all times if I'm playing a course that requires drivers. You know, if I'm playing a short course, I don't need them at all. But any course where I'm throwing distance shots, I'm going to have at least 3 or 4 of these in the bag. I've tested a whole bunch of different ones, and I thought it'd be fun just to kind of go through my stack here, show you all the different ones I have, and give you a little bit of thought on how they fly in comparison to one another. So this is my favorite distance driver that I've ever had. It's a 12-speed. It's understable, but it's not super flippy. So it will fly really straight. It will flip up easily. You can throw turnovers with it quite easily, even for me with my lower arm speed. But I've never found a disc that flies so straight, so accurately, with such good distance from my arm. So I just love this disc. I tested the first run to review right when it came out, obviously. And that one, I was absolutely in love with that disc. It went in the bag, and I started throwing it a ton. Yeah, a few years later now, I still have all of these, and I'm carrying them quite a bit, and I really like them. So let's take a look at the stack, one by one. First of all, the most understable one I have is the ESP. This one's 165 grams, and it is very flat across the top, this new ESP blend. The longer it's in my bag, the grippier it feels. It's just so nice. I mean, the plastic on this thing is incredible. It feels so nice, and it's really, really understable. This is one of the more understable distance drivers I've ever really had in my bag. That being said, it's very effective for certain shots. I can start it on hyzer and commit to it. It'll still roll over and turn over completely. If I throw it flat, it'll turn hard. If I put it on anhyzer, it'll turn really hard. It gets down on a roller quite easily. Very nice flippy utility disc for distance shots. I really like this thing. It's probably the most flippy disc in my bag overall. I have a Fury that's quite understable as well, but this thing really has that natural flip to it. So I love this disc for any of those kind of trick shots. Yeah, again, if I want to go smooth to the right, sometimes I'll throw this thing on hyzer, really commit to it, and it'll take a little bit longer to stand up, turn over, and then ride out. So it'll get extra distance on those big turnovers. I like the ESP quite a bit. It really feels nice as well. Probably the farthest flying one that is still somewhat controllable is the Big Z. This one's starting to get a little bit beat, but it bombs. It gets really far out there, and this one will probably get retired within the next 6 months or so, and I'll get a fresh one in there, just because this one's getting pretty close to my ESP in terms of stability. Not quite, but close enough that I might be able to just use one or the other. But the Big Z ones have huge glide. They fly really far. Probably the farthest flying ones overall, although the Z ones get out there with a lot of distance as well. But I really like the Big Z ones. They feel great. They're kind of somewhere in between in terms of feel, and definitely big glide on the Big Z ones. This one's 170, nice and broken in, and that one bombs. So I like to throw that one, put on a little bit of a turn, and let it turn over, or for hyzer flip straight shots. This one right here is just a stock Z. It's a little bit shiny. It's kind of hard to show you guys this stuff with my filming light here, but this one is really gummy and pearly and is pretty stable. For a Thrasher, definitely not an overstable disc, but for a Thrasher, this one I can throw pretty hard, and it rarely flips over on me accidentally. So I'll start this one on a little hyzer for max distance with some stability to control it. If I want to throw like a long hyzer shot, I will throw this disc as well. Great flyer. I love that one. There are a few different runs of Thrasher that are somewhat overstable. I'll show you the couple that I have found to kind of fill that role in the bag as my slightly overstable to pretty considerably overstable for my arm speed distance driver. 2 different options if you want to find a Thrasher that's going to have much more stability than a Z, ESP, or Big Z. First of all, you have the 2016 Am World's prototype. This is right when they first kind of started running these. I have 2 of these just because I bagged one of them and I wanted to have a backup as well. These are firm, and they are pretty stiff and firm, and they're pretty flat as well. They don't have much dome to them. You can see on the bottom here it says prototype driver. These ones, are definitely much more overstable than the other ones I've shown you so far. So they really don't turn much at all. They'll just kind of hold up to speed and then fade out for me and my arm. So I really like having one of these in the bag at all times. I've been carrying this blue one because I like the color slightly better. This one's really nice for kind of going up and over. If I want to hit it a little flatter and let it just kind of maybe ride a little bit, come back. And it's just a little bit more stability overall. I really like those ones. Also, probably the most overstable run that I have found is somewhat recent, and that is the 2019 Ledgestone Glow Z Sparkle. Right, so I have a blue one of those as well, and I have this red one that I carried a little bit more. This one's pretty overstable, guys. Honestly, like a little bit more overstable than I need this particular run. So I've been throwing the Protos just because they're not quite as overstable, and I like the flyer top feel in the hand a little bit better for my my own personal preference. But these are nice, stable runs. So if you tried the Thrasher but you find them to be a little bit too understable for your arm speed, if you grab yourself one of these Glow Sparkle Z Ledgestone Thrashers, pretty rad stamp on these as well. I think you'll agree. Good looking discs and nice stability for sure. Almost pretty much just as stable as like a Zeus, or more overstable than some of the Zeuses that I've tested. Where to go from there? Man, I have so many of these. Let's look at the rest of the Z ones that I have. This one is a Barbarian Stronghold stamp. This one was sent to me by Tyler Helmke. He's a friend of the channel. He's one of my patrons as well. This one flies super nice and is just really, really neutral. So I like to throw this one, and I know I can control it on different angles. This is a workhorse thrower that I throw a lot. This one is definitely in the bag, and I really like the way this thing flies. It has good distance, but it's still pretty controllable. Not terribly different from that Pearly Z one I showed you a little while ago. This is a new run, orange, just straight up Z. This one actually has the flight numbers, 12, 5, -3, and 2. I would say those are pretty spot on, maybe -2 and 2 from my perspective, but it's pretty subjective there. This one is a nice flyer as well, somewhat similar. This is probably the one that would go in my bag if I lost that Pearly one. I like that one quite a bit. This is another Barbarian Stronghold one that I put a shaving cream dye on. Not my best work, but not terrible. And this one's ready to be called upon for duty if I ever need it. And then I also have a first run. This is a max weight first run. The actual original one that I reviewed was like 168, 169 or so. And it's just a little bit more overstable than that one. Just doesn't quite have the same feel or flight to it. It looks quite similar in terms of the plastic. It's not quite as translucent. The first one I had was kind of like, almost looked like crystal plastic. It was very, very clear, translucent plastic. This is a nice flyer though, and I keep it at the ready. It's actually pretty stable, I would say, based on my my memory. Moving on, I have an X Thrasher. This one is kind of like a step above a Pro D Thrasher. That's the only one of the few types I don't have represented here. I lost my TI one and I didn't replace it because I didn't find it was much more different than my Zs. So that's one that you could get if you like the titanium plastic. Similar, no real huge difference in terms of stability. And this one is in the X plastic. I don't have a Pro D one. I have carried those before. They're very flippy, but they're nice for certain shots. I could always end up grabbing one of those. This is one I like to have if I'm playing maybe a course that has water or something like that. I might throw this in the bag. It flies pretty similar to like a big Z. It's a little bit less stable than the Z ones, but it's a cheaper plastic. It's grippy, feels nice, and I don't really care so much if I lose it, so that one's nice to have. Not necessarily like a throwaway, like I'm trying to lose it, but if it gets lost, I'd rather lose that one than pretty much any of the other ones I have. Then I have a backup ESP. This one is another dyed one that I did. This one's just a little bit more stable than the 166 that I have in my bag. So this one would go in if I needed to replace the one that's in my bag. This is the bottom stamp Tour Series Val Edition Thrasher. And Val signed it for me at Portland Open. It is also the Portland Open stamp. Really good looking disc. This one's beautiful. Could end up on the wall at any time. It's also a nice flyer. This one, even being in the ESP plastic, the Tour Series for whatever reason, this run is definitely more stable than the stock ESP ones that I've thrown. And this one is pretty equivalent to the Z's in terms of flight, so it could end up in the bag at any time, but I do really like the feel of it. But since it's signed and it was like kind of a keepsake from the first ever Portland Open, I kind of just hold on to it. But yeah, definitely could go in the bag. A great flyer, no doubt. And last but not least, this one was given to me by my friend Andy. You've seen him on the channel and a lot of the reviews. This is a Glow ESP Thrasher from the 2017 Ledgestone, and I just recently put a dye job on it. So it's got some yellow on the outer edge, and it's got some blue patterns and stuff going on the inside. This one is also quite similar to the Z, not terribly different, a little bit more overstable and a little bit less glide perhaps, but this is one that's probably going to go back in my bag to continue testing it, see how it flies, and it's been a little while since I've gotten it out and thrown it, but it is a really nice feeling disc, and I want to see if the ESP Glow, as I continue to break it in, will just get grippier over time. I'm imagining it's going to, and I might want to just try to break this one in just a little bit and see how she does, especially since given to me by a friend, and I like the dye job came out pretty good. So that is a quick look at all of my Thrashers, my favorite distance driver of all time. Let me know in the comments down below, what is your favorite distance driver that you've ever thrown? Thank you so much to everybody for your support. I know things are kind of crazy right now, and I hope to give you guys a little bit of a reprieve from the doom and gloom and just kind of talk plastic. And remember that life goes on. Thank you so much to everybody who supports me, both subscribing, the likes, the comments, all that stuff, and of course the people who support me on Patreon. You can find me, patreon.com/discgolfnerd. Thank you so much to everybody. Keep your chin up. We'll get through this. I'll talk to you soon. Cheers.